Good morning, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whatever you might be doing. We wish to welcome you to the Silverlight Show. The Silverlight shines to illuminate that which lies hidden in darkness. For those of you tuning in today, we welcome you in. God, it's lovely to have a cityscape you can film in anytime you want. Good news, this is probably the last day you're going to see that because my spray paint kit finally came in after months. So you're going to look like brick buildings. But that's not the reason why we're talking about things today. Just a little channel update that the background's going to get a little more interesting. I want to talk about technological progress and the way it evolves in ways that we do not think of. There's a lot of talk about the government putting RFID chips into you and people spying on you through your phone, etc. And while this does happen, it's not the way you think about it. Because technology doesn't progress in ways that we think about. Back when electrical motors were new, the idea was you were going to have one electrical motor in your home. And you would have a belt from that going to your sewing machine, to your laundry machine, to your dryer, to your clothes washer. If you're a handyman, to your router or lathe or whatever you're using. And that one electrical engine was going to run everything in your home. Much to people's surprise, technology advanced quickly. And instead of having one electrical motor, as you know, you have dozens of them in your home. There's one in your fridge and freezer, little ones that just move the refrigerant around. All those appliances I mentioned all have little tiny electrical motors in them. Because it would be simply inconvenient to run another stack of stuff through your house, to have belts going to and from the motor, which themselves are subject to wear and tear. And yeah, while it would have been theoretically possible to run things like that, the technology developed completely in a different manner with self-contained, invisible support. To the point that you're probably not even thinking your freezer has a motor in it, because freezers and fridges have gotten dynamically quieter since the 1970s. And I can't attest much more than that because I don't predate the 70s. Another interesting development is water. Now, water has been a problem for cities forever. The first real civilizations developed because they developed control over their water. In Rome, they were so good, they actually had hot and cold running water coming in on the pipes, the aqueducts, to use the proper term, coming out of the hills and the springs, so you could literally have hot and cold running water in your spa, in your bath, whatever it was. That was a fair level of sophistication. I believe the Chinese had it as well. Basically everything, the Chinese had it if we had it. Because they were no slouches in ancient times, and they're no slouches in modern times. But in modern times, we have a completely different problem. We, being the spoiled city dwellers that most of us are, expect pressurized water. If we were to turn on our taps and a little trickle comes out, we would be most distressed and start looking for a problem. And since we live in a city, how do you wind up getting water to all these people? Well, the city takes care of the fresh water, the cold water, the stuff coming in. The pipes are maintained at a pressure, and usually there's a water tower or something in place. That way it keeps the pressure built up. But what about hot water? This is something not a lot of people think about. And in houses, hot water heaters are generally in the basement, and they use water pressure to pull that water up to the second floor, whatever. But if you live in an apartment building, You have to make sure that there's enough water for everybody in either of these buildings to take a shower or a bath or whatever at the same time. This is a little behind the magic kind of reveal. So as it turns out, old Silverlight used to work as a security guard. Yeah, I know, Silverlight's worked as everything. Had an adventurous life. Read my bio. Among my jobs was going up and checking the water boiler every couple hours to make sure they were functional. These things were older. They were oil-based water boilers. This is down at Bay and Charles. If you're in Toronto, you know exactly where that is. If you're not in Toronto, it doesn't matter. It's a big, tall apartment building, 32 stories. On the 33rd story, there was, for lack of better, 3 humongous water heaters. If you know what a 20-foot shipping container is, that's about the size these things were. One of my jobs was every couple hours to go up and just make sure they were running. It was real easy. There was 2 lights. One was green, one was red. And, if it was red, you click the reset. It came back on, went to green. Fantastic. If it didn't, you gave it a couple of minutes, came back, and then you might have to call maintenance. Pretty simple. But once again, the technology went invisible. Whereas in our houses, we know where our water heater is. In the apartment on the 32nd level, whichever 32nd level you want to pick, these 3 boilers are doing a fantastic job giving out water, hot water, to everybody on demand. These are gigantic machines burning oil. I mean literal fuel oil, not natural gas, not anything like that, proper oil. And they work perfectly well. I think in the years that I worked, which was 2 or 3, I forget which, but there was only one time I got a complaint that the water wasn't coming through properly. And I forget the circumstances behind that, but I think it was basically the hot water had kicked out and one of the heaters wasn't working properly, and it was just a matter of resetting it in a couple hours. These things were working again. So what does this have to teach us? Basically, technology disappears. And right now, while we're all running around with smartphones and cell phones and this, that, the other thing, the next evolution is probably going to be along the line of Google Glasses or Oculus, but more in a glasses form. And the reason I say that is because phones, everything about them is basically getting smaller, which is why they're adding more features. They're at the point where it's surgically possible, although I wouldn't recommend it, to implant them directly into your skin. I mean, we already talked to Siri and Alexa and all of them, so how much harder would it be to do the same thing subcutaneously, which means under the skin? You could basically tap your wrist, and that would wake the chip up. It's even possible to charge it with, I think it's called piezoelectric energy. Whatever, there used to be watches, and just the movement of your body would be what charged it up. And it wasn't stealing electricity from you, it was just the movement was what charged them up. Well, to be honest, semiconductor electronics don't require a hell of a lot of electricity. And the way they're developing holographic technology, and like I said, there's always the standby of glasses. People will wear glasses. They don't care if they're being called a nerd, so long as they're functional. And a phone could be, well, my father already has one of those wristwatches where, it does pretty much everything you want the phone to do because it's integrated with the phone. So this is already happening. We're seeing our smart devices disappear before our very eyes. Now, some of you are immediately thinking, mark of the beast, this was prophesied in the Bible, etc., etc. And to this, I say no. Because Revelations actually says it will be a mark on your arm or your forehead. And I think it would be both. And also, I can't see putting a mark in the forehead. I suppose you'd implant a chip up there, but who wants to be smacking their head trying to call somebody? Nobody. But we're going to see a magical time in the next 20 years where getting a new phone is literally going to be a life-altering decision because it's going to be implanted in your body. And your body will naturally start breaking chips down. They've done experiments with this, and usually chips have a life of about 10 years. And as technology is racing forward, I don't even know how a 10-year-old phone would work today. Yes, you could still call people and text message and stuff like that, but you're not going to be able to launch Raid on Tesla Tower or whatever video game is popular. I just made that up, but if you want to use it, go ahead, just give Silverlight credit in the comments. The important lesson is we don't need to worry about chips being implanted in us against our will because the technology will disappear long before that. It's not too hard to imagine taking a pill and that will be your new smartphone. It'll migrate to wherever it needs to be in your body because they're getting better and better with their technology. For a lot of people, like say you're the CEO of a pretty rich Fortune 500 company and you do want to be appraised of every single thing that's going on in your empire. You would also probably get a custom-made phone. You know, your own team would work security on it, and you'd be able to go to sleep and shut the thing off and tell it to only alert you in case the following 3 people contact you, whatever your preferences may be. Meanwhile, the plebs like us are going to get the same phone that we have right now, which alerts us every time somebody likes one of our messages on Facebook. But the technology itself will disappear. And just like we laugh at the phones and my 9-year-old, when I show her what we grew up with, which if you had an extended phone line that you could reach across the room, that was a luxury. Cordlesses were still on the horizon. It's a cordless, not a cell phone, and she can't believe how primitive it was. And me being the fan of films that I am from the late 19th, early 20th century, I can't believe the difference in technology between then and now. Technology is disappearing. It's going to keep disappearing because we are a very innovative species. If the American scientists don't develop it, Japanese will. If the Japanese scientists don't develop it, the Chinese will. If the Chinese scientists don't develop it, the Indians will. And you know what? It's a worldwide phenomenon. Somebody's going to come up with it. Probably about 20 years from now, when we're on 6G, 7G, whatever G we need to be next, and some people are walking around with box monstrosities and being made fun of, just the way we talk about people that have the old brick cell phones today. And I actually do have one of those, but I didn't think to bring it down into my recording room. But like I said, the technology will disappear. And when that technology disappears, guess what goes with it? The jobs. Yep. Those people right now, well, the good news is those people in the Chinese sweatshops right now won't need to worry about, committing suicide because they're not going to have any income. No one's going to buy this old technology. Although I imagine a burner phone will always be appreciated. But it's really going to be a paradigm shift. And it's not very far in the future. Like I said, it's really already here. We're hiding the phone and we're using a watch. We're using our glasses. We are already at this stage of technological development. It's not very hard to figure out where it's going. But anyways, just something to ponder. We hope you enjoyed this episode of the Silverlight Show. If you did, please hit like, share, subscribe. We always appreciate it when anybody buys a book because those take years to produce and they're always in process. So buying one of those supports the channel in more ways than you can imagine. My voice is getting better, as you can tell. I'm still coughing a bit, but thanks for everybody for the well wishes that I got. And we hope you have a fantastic day.